Okay, I guess this will be part 7. Working towards wax stencils. Despite living in the castle, the only time I saw my adoptive family, aside from when I was summoned by them, was during dinner. We ate breakfast in our own rooms, and during lunch, Sylvester and Florencia would usually go to meetings that I wasn't allowed to attend. As a result, dinner time was my one opportunity to talk to them. Sylvester, I'll be returning to the temple tomorrow and shall remain there for about a month. Why is that? Isn't the eatery done now? Sylvester asked with a piercing gaze. It wasn't hard to tell that his deep green eyes were searching for something fun to do. In order to improve printing technology, I will need to frequently meet with and discuss matters with those building the tools. I will immediately return to report our findings whenever a new piece of technology is made. Sylvester put on a regal expression and nodded, but I was sure he had made up some random excuse to come and observe me regardless. Sylvester, if you would like to come and observe the process, please do not fail to inform me ahead of time. I know, Sylvester replied. I swallowed the urge to say that he definitely didn't know, and instead just finished eating. Once we had said goodnight, we headed back to our rooms. For Wilfred and I, that meant heading to the northern building together. No fair, Rose, mind. Wilfred had looked sullen all through dinner, and was now glaring at me with his deep green eyes that really resembled Sylvester's. But I wasn't sure what he was calling unfair. What's not fair, might I ask? I'm saying it's no fair, which means it's no fair, he exclaimed. He was so far from an excellent answer that I had no idea what he was trying to say. I looked up at Lamprecht confused, but he just gave me an uncomfortable frown. It seemed that now was a bad time for him to explain. And as soon as we arrived at the northern building, I started climbing the stairs to my room. My sincerest apologies. Wilfred, I'll be away for the following month, and I hope that you find peace in my absence. Good night. Wilfred angrily shouted, You don't get it at all, from the floor below, but I ignored him. I had things that needed doing. Once in my room, I headed to my desk, grabbed a piece of paper, and started writing down everything I needed to finish while I was staying at the temple. Then I listed everything that I needed to bring with me. I wish I had my diptych. This was such a waste of paper. My own diptych had been returned to my family as part of mine's belongings. Lance mentioned that Thule was using it now, but even if I did have a diptych on me, it was hard to imagine that anyone here would let me use what was essentially an unadorned block of wood. Considering that it could have just been disposed of as something unfit for the Archduke's adopted daughter, I was lucky that Thule had been given it at all. But I still wished I had one myself. I know he's busy, so this will probably annoy him, but I'll ask Benno to order one for me. With that decision made, my eyes fell on the cabinet that Riarda had put the books from Ferdinand in. It hurt so much knowing that I had new books so close to me, but couldn't read them. As I continued to stare at them regretfully, Riarda cleared her throat. Please rest for today, milady. Fine, but I'm waking up early tomorrow so I can start reading. The next day, I did indeed wake up early in the morning, but when I tried to get a book, I found that the cabinet wouldn't open. It was locked. I ended up having to painfully wait for Riarda to come, and when she eventually did, she scolded me for not getting enough rest. And to make matters worse, she sent me off to the temple as soon as I had finished breakfast. Her reasoning, if you start reading, my lady, you'll forget about your promise. Ferdinand told me that. Curse you, Ferdinand! With pursed lips and dark feelings stirring in my heart, I got into my carriage and headed to the temple. Bridget and Daniel were accompanying me, so even though we weren't in the same carriage, I was with my usual squad. Welcome back, Lady Rosamine, Fran said on our arrival. It's good to see you, Fran, I replied as I made our way... God dang, wake up! As we made our way to the High Bishop's chambers. I was told that you would be staying in the castle for some time, so I was quite surprised yesterday when the High Priest informed me that you would be returning. I was surprised too when he instructed me to return, I said bitterly, my frustration at being summoned back without getting so much as a chance to read growing fiercer with each passing moment. The stack of books Ferdinand had given me belonged to the castle's bookroom, and as taking them outside the castle was forbidden, I would only get to read them when I returned. In other words, I was being denied books for an entire month. Lady Rosamine, you appear to be quite upset. Has something happened? Ferdinand is standing between me and my books. He forced me to come back before I even had a chance to start reading them. He must have a truly fierce need for those compositions and recipes, I said angrily, causing Fran to widen his eyes in surprise. Is that so? He instructed me to contact the Gilberta Company since you had finished gathering donations. I believe you should be arriving soon, Fran said, throwing me off entirely. I had certainly been thinking I should give the money to Benno as quickly as possible, since he would need it soon, but I hadn't expected Ferdinand to set up the meeting for us. Shall we go to the orphanage director's chambers once you are finished changing? Nicola is waiting with sweets prepared. Oh, is she? I'm looking quite forward to that, I said with a laugh, causing Fran to put a hand on his chest and let out a sigh of relief. Monica changed my clothes while Fran counted the donation money we had gathered, and once we were done, I headed to the orphanage director's chambers. I inhaled deeply once I was there, feeling more relaxed in a room I was used to, then opened the door to my hidden room. Monica, please clean this room and bring in some writing utensils. As you wish. Fran was maintaining a composed expression, but I had noticed him stiffening up a little whenever he was around the hidden room, so I was entrusting Monica with cleaning it and such. Fran, where are Gil and Wilma? Gil is at the gate waiting to welcome the Gilberta Company. Shall I go and summon Wilma so that you may speak to her? I do want to ask Wilma to draw something for me, but it can wait until I finish talking with Lutz and the others. Fran began informing me what had happened while I was absent, and soon enough, Benno and Lutz arrived. There was apparently so much work to do involving the monastery that Mark had decided to stay behind in the store. Lutz, Benno, thank you for coming. Follow me. I asked that Gil attend me and Daniel guard duty. Or Daniel guard me. Blah, 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 blah. I walked into my hidden room, and as soon as the door was closed, I leaped into Lutz's arms. I could guess that he had already seen it coming, so he accepted the hug without a trace of surprise. Lutz, you'll never believe it, but Ferdinand is a huge jerk. I'm really dang busy right now, you know. I'm busy too. I had to hold a tea party to gather donations and give so many fake smiles that I ended up bedridden. Then Ferdinand forced me to start magic training because he's mad at me for something that's not my fault, and now he's being a huge bully out of spite. It's really hard for me right now. Lutz narrowed his eyes. The high priest is bullying you? How? What's he doing? He showed me a huge stack of books that I'd never seen before. Then gave me so much to do that I didn't even get a chance to touch them. He even got someone to keep an eye on me to make sure I wasn't reading them. Isn't that just cruel? Gotta say, I admire his courage. I'd be fearing for my life right now if I were him. Lutz said, shooting me a somewhat nervous glance. Yeah, if anybody else had tried that, they'd probably be risking their life, considering she could crush them easily. But the high priest is still probably able to take her down if he had to. He had seen firsthand what kind of rampages I went on when books were taken from me. But his eyes only wavered for a second before he gave me a gentle pat on the head. You've done a good job holding it in. Yep, I'm proud. Actually, I decided that I'm not going to hold it in. I'm so annoyed that I'm going to finish the wax stencils. How were those two things even connected? Lutz exclaimed. But that wasn't important. What mattered to me right now was finishing the wax stencils and making Ferdinand feel even more awkward than he had ever felt in his entire life. Oh my god, I hope they put an illustration of it. Come on, guys, show us. Show us, please. For all the Ferdinand fans out there. It doesn't matter. Let's just make them together, okay? I asked, clinging to Lutz. That was when Benno's eyes shot open and he unleashed his thunder on me. You absolute idiot. Don't you know how busy the both of us are already? I need wax stencils for my scheme. Benno, don't you know how hard it is to gather money in noble society? I barked back. Benno widened his eyes in surprise. His momentum had been completely blown away, and I didn't miss the opportunity to pile it on thick. Not even his thunder could shake my anger at being denied books. This is my only opportunity to make this kind of money. Wax stencils will bring in a stupid amount of profit if we can have the money in time. So basically, I'm borrowing Lutz for a month, I declared, wrapping my arms around him even tighter. Hey, don't decide something like that on your own, Lutz chided before flicking my forehead. I put my hand over the spot where he'd flicked me and pursed my lips at him. You made the things I think up, don't you, Lutz? Are you really okay breaking that tradition? Nah, but as much as I'd like to lend you, Lutz, we seriously got our hands full. We just don't have the stuff or the money we need. Benno said while scratching his head. The surplus from the Rosemine workshop apparently wasn't enough to keep them going anymore. And he had been talking to the guildmaster about how much of the load they would each be carrying. Don't worry about money, Benno. I've gathered some donations, which I'll be giving to you in a bit. It's enough to cover all of the initial costs. Come again? Raising money was always the biggest problem for merchants, and that was especially true now given how much money we needed. As such, nobody could blame Benno for looking stunned when I mentioned that I had managed to solve the issue while he wasn't looking. Alright, I'll lend you Lutz. It'll be easier to make the orders with the money on hand, and fishing out the materials we need shouldn't be any trouble. If you need his help to raise more money, then have at it, Benno said with gleaming eyes. He had given me permission to use Lutz, and I would use that permission to its fullest. By the way, here, consider this my thanks for connecting me with these nobles. You need one of them, don't you? Benno jutted his chin out while Lutz gingerly took out something rectangular that was wrapped in cloth, which he had then held out to me with a mischievous smile. Please accept this gift, my lady. I took a surprised step back before accepting the bundle from his hands. I then undid the cloth, wondering what the heart... It's a diptych! You got a diptych! with a hard square thing inside of us. Wow, a diptych! It was an extravagant diptych, fit for a noble, and ornately carved and polished to a shine with something like varnish. As I excitedly looked it over, Benno gave a laugh. I know that Tuli's using your diptych now, and figured you'd need a new one, so yeah, I had this made. We've put the crest of the Rosemine Workshop on the front, the crest of Lord Karstedt's family on the back, and the crest of the Archduke where your name would usually go, Benno explained while pointing at various spots on the diptych. Less than pointed at the metal stylus that was attached to it. We gave Johann an order to make the same one he made you before, so it will work just like you're used to. I really wanted a diptych. Thank you, Benno, and thank you, Lutz. I giggled as I held the diptych, which was just big enough to fit perfectly into my hands. The joy of being gifted something right when I really needed it brought a natural smile to my face. It felt so nice to know that somebody was thinking about me and that they knew me so well. So, where's that donation money of yours? I entrusted it to Fran, so we'll have to leave the hidden room. I kind of want to recharge a bit more of Lutz, but since he'll be in the temple for a whole month, I guess we can continue this tomorrow. Thanks to the diptych, my heart was soaring. I stepped out of my hidden room in a great mood, but since Bridget was there, I still needed to act like a noble when I spoke to Fran. Fran, please give the donation money to Benno. Benno, I intend to let my mother know how this donation money was used, so I ask that you give me a detailed report on how you spend it. The way I saw it, a detailed report that informed donors where their money went might make the next donation drive easier. That is all the business I have with you, Benno. I imagine that preparing the monastery will be difficult, but I have complete faith in your abilities. Lutz and Gil, I would like to discuss matters of the workshop with you both, so stay here if you please. I am honored, Benno said as he accepted the bag containing over 3 large gold before putting it into his pocket and letting Monica escort him out of the temple. I took a seat at the table. First I wanted to hear how the wax stencils were progressing in the workshop. Gil, how is the workshop? Are you making paper thin enough to be used for wax stencils? We can make fairly thin paper using the wood from those growing trees. We tried using normal paper, but it just doesn't work. It will be a challenge unless we can find another kind of wood to use. Gil mentioned that they can now make fairly thin paper out of trombo wood, but using that will make the stencils unreasonably expensive. The wood was rare, and not something we could use so freely. The most ideal option will be to use a tree native to this region, like the Voron tree, but it seemed that Voron wasn't suited for making wax stencils. In this one case, however, we could still make a profit while using trauma paper since the Ferdinand illustrations would no doubt fetch a high price. Oh, definitely. If you price it high enough, Elvira will probably buy at least a few of those. I didn't really mind the increased production cost if it meant we'd be able to finish the wax stencil, so I decided to go ahead and make an experimental stencil using trombo wood. Have you had any luck using the iron that Johann made? I suppose that not even changing the type of wax helped to make the layer uniformly thin. Not only does the wax not end up uniform, but when we tried cutting the stencil on top of the file Johann made, the wax cracked and became unusable. These cracks were forming either because the wax was too thick or too hard. In other words, I would need to add some kind of tree sap-like resin to soften it. What were the ratios for that again? I don't really remember. Either way, I guess it doesn't really matter since the wax and resin of this world would be of slightly different stuff, especially due to all the impurities. Lady Rosemine, back when you put wax on the normal stencils to protect Wilma's illustration, I remember you mentioning that it wouldn't be any issue if the thread from the cloth left an imprint on it. Is that true for wax stencils as well? Absolutely not. I had used baking paper back in my Rhino days, but I couldn't make these here. I couldn't even think of something that could be used as a makeshift replacement. The only thing that came to mind was the wax coating machines that craftsmen used to make wax stencils on Earth. They pulled the paper between 2 rollers pushed up against each other, which created a thin, even layer of wax. I think one of those wax coating machines will be necessary here, but I wonder whether Johann would even be able to make one. While I could roughly explain the concept, I didn't know enough to be able to draw a detailed blueprint or anything. We'd have to gradually make it through a process of trial and error. But I had no idea whether Johann could manage that given that he always needed detailed blueprints. Lutz, I would like to discuss this with Johann. Please call him over tomorrow. For now, I will head to the workshop to confirm whether the paper you have made is acceptably thin. I stood up and my two guard knights naturally stepped forward to follow me, but having Daniel and Bridget come to the workshop with me would cause problems. Could I ask you two to wait here since there are business secrets at stake? I am afraid not. You must have at least one guard with you at all times, Lady Rosemine. Unable to argue with Bridget, I looked between her and Daniel. In that case, I must ask that only Daniel accompany me. I have much to blackmail him with, and thus imagine that I would be able to silence him no matter what he sees. Lady Rosamond, do you not trust me? Bridget asked harshly, looking at me with a stiff frown. I closed my eyes. I appreciate that you are willing to accompany me even to the lower city that all nobles consider unbearably foul, and as far as you have served me well and true. But this is a separate issue. Bridget gave me a confused look. It seemed that she wasn't following me in the least. I knew how she felt about her family, and I did want to help her however I could, but this was a business matter. And considering how many obligations nobles had, I couldn't give them information this valuable for free. I do trust you, but you are directly connected with the landowning Gabe. It's still beyond me to say whether you would be able to keep valuable information a secret from your family once it's in your possession. Daniel, on the other hand, is not from a family that owns land, and since his family lives in the noble quarter, it will be much easier for me to control him if need be. Understood. Bridget looked at me with newfound fear in her eyes, then shot Daniel a sympathetic glance. Lady Rosamond, when you say you have much to blackmail me with, what might you be referring to? Daniel asked. I shall keep that a secret for now. With the now poor Daniel, I feel bad for him. With the now trembling Daniel as my guard, I headed to the workshop of Letts and Gil when the Grey Priest and children were making paper as usual. Continue your work, everyone. Pay me no mind, I said, before having Gil bring me the thinly made trauma paper, so that I could examine it. As expected, trauma paper was a league above everything else. It felt so much better than Volrin. There's such a huge difference in quality. Oh well, we might as well give it a try anyway. As I looked over the tau fruit stacked in one corner of the workshop, Letts shot a glance at Daniel. Are you sure this is a good idea? In all honesty, I wasn't. The fewer people who knew this secret, the better. But as I needed to have at least one guard of me at all times, Daniel was our safest bet through the process of elimination. Daniel, you must not speak of what you see here to anyone. Not a single person can know. Not my father, not Ferdinand, and certainly not Sylvester. Can you promise me that? Daniel's eyes wavered anxiously. If you speak a word of what you see, I might just let my tongue slip. And what a shame it would be if Sylvester learned of something that would make him tease you mercilessly. What? Aaronfest himself? Daniel asked, wearing a pitiful expression as he thought back to his time as a living sacrifice during spring prayer, where he had been teased non-stop by Sylvester. You'll keep this a secret, won't you, Daniel? I asked with a smile. Daniel gave a pained grimace as if completely torn up inside. He then shut his eyes tight, knelt down, and crossed his arms over his chest. I cannot make that promise. As a knight, I cannot keep my silence if ordered to speak by a superior, so I ask that you allow me to keep my eyes closed. As Daniel couldn't report what he didn't know, he had concluded that the best course of action would be to remain completely ignorant. Yeah, ignorance is bliss in this situation. I nodded. In that case, do not leave the workshop under any circumstances. I pray that curiosity does not lead to your ruin. Thank you, Daniel replied, and so I went outside with Letts and the others while Daniel and a few Grey Priests stayed behind inside the workshop. An illustration of Oh, dear Lord, I want to see it so bad. Come on, give it to us. Letts and Gil fetched baskets and blades to cut trombas, then took the children and Grey Priests to the girls' building as I followed behind. Would someone please summon Wilma, Delia, and Dirk from the girls' building, I asked. Yes, I can go, several children cried out before they all raced off. It wasn't long before Wilma and Delia, who had Dirk in her arms, came outside. Delia's expression was a little stiff. It's good to see you again, Delia. I'm glad you're doing well. I appreciate your concern. Dirk and I are doing just fine, Delia replied, offering me a small smile once I had spoken to her. Delia, Dirk has the devouring. His mana was the reason that that the Count and the High Bishop targeted him. As the Count is still alive, Dirk continues to be bound to him in servitude. The color drained from Delia's face. Count Bindewell was being kept alive so that his crimes could be properly investigated, and so that negotiations could be made with his home duchy of Ehrenbach. Sylvester's priority was making a politically beneficial deal, so it was hard to imagine that nullifying Dirk's contract was something he would even consider. It was safe to assume that Dirk's contract will remain in effect for as long as the Count lived. Dirk has not been given a magic tool with which he can expel the mana building up in his body. We must drain some so it does not overwhelm him. Please have Dirk hold one of these red fruits. I prompted Gil to give Delia a tau fruit, which she then gave to Dirk. His mana hadn't recovered much since he had been completely drained by the High Bishop back in spring. Really? It hasn't recovered that very much at all? So the fruit barely grew large enough for the seeds to start bulging out a little. He should be fine for some time now. You may take Dirk back inside. Hear that? You're all okay now, Delia said to Dirk as she lovingly stroked his head. Dirk had grown a lot over the past season, which meant that Camille was probably bigger too. The nostalgia was so strong that I couldn't help but get a little teary-eyed, so I shook my head to drive away any sentimental thoughts. Nope, I can't let myself start thinking like that or I'll want to go home again. Instead, I focused my thoughts on printing. I needed Wilma to draw the program's cover art for me. Wilma, I have a request. Could you draw an illustration of the High Priest for me? I apologize, but that is beyond me. I have never seen the High Priest. Yes, you have! Didn't the High Priest and Sylvester go to the workshop? She's seen him! She has seen the guy! She might not know it was the High Priest, but she knows it was him. Wilma explained, because she had a traumatic fear of Blue Priests, she had looked at Sylvester and Ferdinand as little as possible when they toured the orphanage. As a result, she hadn't gotten a good look at their faces. I can't believe Wilma doesn't know what Ferdinand looks like. No, I suppose it does make sense now that I think about it. I thought paling in terror as my plot crumbled before my very eyes. I shall invite him to my chambers and you can... I sincerely apologize, but I am still too terrified to even think about going to the noble section of the temple, Wilma said mournfully. Go to the orphanage director's chambers! Go there! It certainly would be hard for her to go there, given that it was essentially a nest of blue priests, but still, it was hard to imagine that any blue priest would go after one of my attendants. None of that was the High Bishop. Wilma, would you perhaps feel more comfortable if I stayed with you at all times? That way nobody would even have a chance to approach you. I truly am sorry, Lady Rosamond. Perhaps you could ask Rosina to sketch his face? I think that I would be able to draw an illustration based on her art, Wilma suggested with a regretful look on her face. I'll go and ask Rosina then, and exclaimed, now beaming with hope. Shrine maidens trained in art really were something else. Wilma let out a small giggle, then returned to the orphanage with Delia and Dirk. Now then, is everyone ready? I asked. Yes, my lady. Everyone had responded in unison, holding their blades for chopping trombas. I looked over them to confirm that everything was prepared, then Let's gave a nod, signaling me to take the towel fruit from Gil. It was already half grown from where Derek had used it, and the moment I grasped the fruit, I could feel my mana being sucked into it. I watched carefully as the number of seeds increased, bubbling beneath the towel's surface as its skin hardened. Then once the fruit was full of seeds, it began heating up. Here it comes, I exclaimed, throwing it onto the dirt, without missing this time. Seeds shot in all directions, and I was instantly picked up by a grey priest who hurriedly escorted me behind the others. I observed their epic battle from the sidelines. It was more than apparent that they were more skilled than they had been last year. They were doing their job efficiently, and without as much of a stumble. Oh my god, I'm stumbling in my words here. You better hope the High Priest does not find out about this, or you guys are in big-time trouble. We turned each of the Brotal fruits we had gathered during the Star Festival and left on the workshop's dirt floor into trombas. And by the time we had cut them all down, the baskets we had brought with us were filled to the brim. I looked over at the kids who were flushed with satisfaction and gave them a smile in return. Now then, please use all of this to make paper. I expect another warm season ahead of us. The orphans all gave an enthusiastic yes, my lady, at which point I decided to lead them to Gil and Lutz so that I could head back to the workshop to retrieve Daniel. When I arrived, I found him aimlessly walking around in circles like a lost puppy. Thank you for waiting, Daniel. We'll be returning to my chambers now, I said, before heading to the High Bishop's chambers and immediately asking Rosina if she could draw an illustration of Ferdinand. Given her fear of men, it does not surprise me that Wilma would have avoided looking at him, but in any case, drawing the High Priest would be no problem at all. He has a very handsome face, that is easy to draw, Rosina said with a giggle, elegantly sliding her pen across the paper as she started to draw Ferdinand. Her art was beyond good. She drew Ferdinand's face from both the front and side, and all it took was a glance to recognize that. It was him. Rosina's art was too impressive for someone who had only picked it up on the side. This is incredible, Monica exclaimed, her dark brown eyes glimmering as she looked closely at Rosina's illustration. Monica, please deliver this to Wilma and ask her to draw an illustration of the High Priest. As you wish, Monica said, leaving the room with Rosina, a sketch hugged closely to her chest. A moment later, Fran returned from asking Ferdinand what his plans were. What did he say, Fran? It seems he had a sudden visitor. So you called me over to stop me from reading books, then have the gall to talk to another visitor first? Very interesting. The dark feelings that had been partially dispelled by my meeting with Lutz and being given a diptych started swirling again. He said that you may peruse the books locked away in the temple's bookroom while you wait. Shall we go? Fran continued. The mention of locked away books immediately blew away all my dark feelings. My main priority here was reading new books. I stood up and gave Fran a smile. At once. Fran, where might the key to those locked away books be? Right here. Accompanied by Fran and my guards, I practically skipped to the bookroom. If you had asked me what the best part was about living in the High Bishop's chambers, I would answer that it was super close to the bookroom. Oh, I imagine you were happy about that. I opened the door to the bookroom with the key that had now been entrusted to me, then faced the locked bookshelf containing the temple's most valuable books. It was my first time even seeing them. Just what kind of books were stored behind that door, considered so valuable that they were kept separate from the others? Just thinking about it made my heart thump. I'm gonna laugh if it's something like very, shoot. It's either nothing in them because they were so ornately decorated that nobody decided to write in them, or something very mind-blowing, like world-breaking type thing, or I'm gonna laugh if it's something lewd. I'm gonna laugh! I slid my key into the lock, my heart pounding with excitement and nervousness, and the bookshelf door opened with a small click. 5 large books were lined up inside, each with an ornately crafted cover. I will only need 1 book today, Fran. Please bring it to the reading table, I requested, eyes gleaming. It was hard for me to carry a big print, 60-centimeter tall book on my own. Lady Rosemine, it appears that these are not books. What? Indeed, these weren't actually books lined up in the locked bookshelf. Rather, it was a box that had been carved to look like a row of books, and inside of it was a bunch of folded letters. Huh? Ooh, the plot thickens! I picked one up and immediately noticed it was made of paper that was more like parchment than the plant paper I was making. When I opened it up, I saw that it didn't have the sender's name on it. Is this by chance a... Oh, no! No, don't tell me it's that! Is this by chance a love letter? Fran, should I really be allowed to read this? Lady Rosemine, as you are the High Bishop, I believe it is your duty to read the letters and report their contents to the High Priest. Considering I think this was locked away by the High Bishop, who knows what's in this thing? It could be incriminating evidence for all we knew. Given where they were hidden, perhaps the letters were from the former High Bishop's lover. There were a lot here. Oh no, what should I do? Now my heart's really beating fast. Well, no point wasting time then. It seemed that the letters got older the further down into the box you went. So I turned the box over and started reading from the oldest one. The High Bishop's anonymous girlfriend was apparently a noble girl who had been raised as a successor to her family for her entire life. But then her parents gave birth to a baby boy, and since he had more mana than her, he was selected as her next successor instead. The girl felt as though all her pride and hard work up until that point had been for nothing, so her heart was flooded with frustration. Her father predicted that this anger toward her little brother would lead to a civil war of sorts within the family, and so had her married off to a noble in another duchy. With both her mother and father completely absorbed in her little brother, the girl wrote to the High Bishop saying that, "You are the only one I can rely on. Lady, I think you picked the wrong person to rely on. I completely agree on this one." It seemed that the girl continued to send letters here on a regular basis, even after she had been married away. Just what did she mean to the previous High Bishop? Given how carefully he was preserving her letters, I was clear that she meant a lot to him. Wow. Huh. Okay, I wonder if this person is someone we know. I will laugh if that's the case. Priests can't marry. But what if they decide they want to get married? Do they have to not be a priest anymore? Ooh, I feel bad for Ferdinand now. Actually, I probably shouldn't, because he chose that. So, but what if he... I don't know. Priest couldn't marry, so perhaps he had a hidden crush on her? I'd always thought he was just a greedy, lustful, perverted old man. But maybe he had an innocent side to him, too. Though that's really hard for me to imagine. I read through letter after letter until Monica eventually came to the bookroom in search of me. Only when Fran tapped me on the shoulder did I look up from reading. "Lady Rosemine, Wilma has a request for you," Monica said. "And what might that be?" "She would like to see the High Priest in person before drawing him." "Oh, okay." Her attitude had done a complete 180 since I had last seen her, and while I was glad to hear that Wilma was increasingly working up the courage to come to my chambers, I didn't know how to feel knowing that it was a sketch of Ferdinand that had motivated her. Oh, this could be interesting. Well, that's fine. I shall go and get Wilma from the orphanage. Ferdinand should be visiting my chambers soon anyway. Fran, I'll be going to the orphanage with Monica, so please return to my chambers to prepare for Ferdinand's visit ahead of time. When I went to the orphanage to fetch Wilma, she greeted me with an embarrassed smile. My apologies, Lady Rosemine. I just couldn't believe my eyes when I saw Rosina's sketch. Never in my life have I seen anyone with such perfect features. Perfect features? Yes, I could not imagine a face better suited for art. It is so beautifully composed. Were Sister Christine here, she would wish for him to exist by her side at all times, serving as a muse to observe and inspire her. Do you not feel the same way? No! Girl! He is like the devil to her. At times. Ferdinand apparently had such handsome facial features that Wilma wanted to use him as a model, and the art-loving shrine maiden of yesteryear, Sister Christine, would have wanted to have him with her as much as possible. I honestly can't empathize at all. I do agree that Ferdinand has a handsome face, but he's generally expressionless and gives off an overall cold impression. At times I think of him as a moving statue. I much prefer a more living beauty, like what... Oh! Interesting. I wonder what Fran would say if he heard this. Like what Fran has now that he has started showing a greater variety of expressions. There is much beauty in the peaceful, transparent, and caring expression I expounded. When Fran was little, he was probably a cute boy who looked very... Oh, no! Don't get me started on this, guys. Looked very feminine. He was muscular enough that I didn't normally think about that, but whenever he looked surprised or laughed, he would look a lot younger than he actually was. Lady Rosemine, I believe that is excessive praise for Fran. You think so? I won't deny that the High Priest is handsome, but I believe that is a matter of opinion. Where different tastes lead to different conclusions, but even so, my attendants are far cooler than the High Priest's, and they are much cuter. That is simply a fact, I said firmly. Oh my, Monica said with a giggle while Bridget nodded in agreement. Oh, looks like I have a silent ally. I get the feeling that Bridget and I will be very good friends. Welcome back, Lady Rosemine. I had turned to my chambers to find Rosina waiting with her harpspiel, a trace of giddiness in her expression. Ferdinand was beside her, also holding a harpspiel, while Fran was setting a pen and some paper on the table in front of them so that Ferdinand could write out the music I was about to teach him. Apologies for the wait, Rosemine. I did not expect that visitor. Oh, it was no problem at all. I spent the time reading some very fascinating things. I don't mind lending them to you once I've finished reading them all, I said with a smile, while having Fran prepare a pen and some ink for Wilma as well. My words earned me a nod and a faint grin from Does he know? I don't think he knows. Maybe? Has he read? Oh my god, I swear if Ferdinand has not looked at those papers, I'm gonna laugh. Now then, you know what to do, Ferdinand said while readying his harpspiel. I thought about which song to give him, all the while watching Wilma's pen race across paper out of the corner of my eye. What would be a funny song for Ferdinand to unwittingly sing? Oh my god, don't! You're gonna embarrass that! Oh, what am I saying? That's our plan! He lacks both kindness and compassion, so something about love, heroism, and friendship should be just perfect. Which is it? Come on, tell me! I selected a famous anime song and hummed it. Which is it, guys? Please tell me! After a bit, Ferdinand waved a hand signaling me to stop. He then strummed his harpspiel fluidly, arranging the notes into a song. Rosina watched excitedly, then shot a hand up. What is it, Rosina? I asked. High Priest, what do you think about arranging it like this? Rosina asked before strumming the tune in her own arrangement. Ferdinand stroked his chin, clearly impressed, then added something to the sheet music in front of him. That will do well for an orchestral arrangement, he said. Rosina and Ferdinand proceeded to make the song together, regularly sharing their thoughts and opinions. Their discussions were so high level that I couldn't even grasp a fraction of what they were saying, and the fact that my attendants and guard knights were watching them with impressed expressions led me to believe that none of them understood what was being said either. Wilma, meanwhile, had a deadly serious expression in her look in her eyes as she continued to draw. Ooh. Oh no. What are you gonna say? Incidentally, Rosemine, what kind of lyrics are attached to this song? Ferdinand asked, causing my heart to skip a beat. Well, it goes like, I want to know what makes you happy. Don't want this to end before I know. We need love and courage. Something like that. I see, so it is a love song of yearning then. No, not at all! I cackled on the inside, all the while maintaining a perfect neutral expression. That too was thanks to my noble training. Who would have thought that an anime song adored by kids would end up as a melodramatic love song in another way? Adored by kids? What song is it, guys? Pokemon? Is it Pokemon? I'll laugh if that's the case. Come on, Anime Rock, come on. When they do the anime for season 4, please have him perform that song. Please! I want to hear it. So bad I will laugh. I'll be grinning the entire time. Rosina and Ferdinand discussed what lyrics would match the song, deciding upon line after line in a speedy fashion. The lyrics ended up entirely different from what they originally were. This should suffice, Ferdinand said before playing the new song from beginning to end. Bright, peaceful music flowed through the air as he sang in his deep, pleasantly reverberating voice, telling the tale of, Abeglavin, the god of life, offering up his love to Geduld, the goddess of earth. It was a song in which Abeglavin courted Geduld by singing that he wished to know what made her happy, so while it was founded in religious legends, it was a love song. Ferdinand's beautiful voice trickled into my ears, and despite knowing the original lyrics, I couldn't help but get goosebumps across my entire body. At some point in the past, I had thought that Ferdinand could get pretty much any girl he wanted by singing them a love song, and he had just given me any more reason to believe that. Wilma had forgotten to draw at all, and was instead just staring at Ferdinand with widened eyes. Rosita had always liked Ferdinand as a fellow musician of culture, but now her pupils were basically hearts as she gazed upon him in a broad dream. No! You got all the girls now, Ferdinand! You just done it to yourself, dude! You've got more groupies now. Monica and Nicola both had flushed cheeks, and Bridget was looking at him in surprise. It wasn't just the women looking at Ferdinand in awe. Fran and Daniel were both impressed by his playing as well. Is having Ferdinand play his harpsichord at a concert going to be a lot more dangerous than I thought? Possibly. Especially if the girls try to get to him. When I saw Wilma's excessively aesthetic illustration of Ferdinand clearly drawn through rose-tinted glasses, I started to seriously rethink whether the concert was a good idea. Boy, I need to stop. I'll see you guys next time.